Hello, this is Justin Ruger with Accessible Beekeeping and More. Today we have our guest, Linda. How are you doing, Linda?
Not too bad, thanks. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Yeah, I'm from New South Wales in Australia, and I'm about an hour and a half down from Sydney in an area called the Southern Highlands. It's very pretty, but it gets quite cold. And in my usual work, I'm a social worker, and beekeeping is one of my many hobbies.
And how often is it cold there?
Well, it starts getting cold pretty early. Normally by April, it's already a lot colder than now. We get a lot of rain. We've had a lot of flooding in the last month or two. Um, so I'll often have the heater on in the middle of summer because it's gets quite cold in summer as well.
So you guys are starting to winterize your bees.
Yeah. So most people have them packed down by the end of March. But because I was trying to finish off my hive, I'm only just winterizing them this weekend.
Awesome. So if you don't mind me asking, would you like to, since this is a disability channel, would you like to tell us a little bit about what your limitations are and how it affects your beekeeping?
Yep. So my main disability is called dystonia. It's a neurological disorder, and for me, it affects my hands, and I can get quite a significant tremor. I have a lot of trouble with the fine motor coordination, so um, doing inspections can be difficult for me and the bees because I upset them if I shake and drop things. And I also have fibromyalgia and osteoarthritis in my spine. So lifting and bending is really quite difficult as well. So, yeah,
Well, I'm sorry you're dealing with that.
that's okay. The dystonia I've had all my life. So it's something that I've always had to find workarounds.
What do you do? Sorry. When you started beekeeping, you already had dystonia, correct?
Yes, yeah. And I
So you've
already
been
had, already had the pain, fibromyalgia and osteoarthritis as well. Yeah.
okay. So what have you had to do differently to manage your beekeeping?
Well, initially I thought beekeeping was something that I could do myself without any help, but I ended up having to rope my husband in, who doesn't enjoy it. He's been stung a lot of times. Um, my younger son will sometimes help, but he's a bit wary of the bees as well. And it was getting frustrating for everybody because I couldn't just go and inspect the bees whenever I wanted. I had to wait until I got help with lifting boxes. And I had to do really short and quick inspections, which upset the bees. Um, so, yeah, did you want me to go into what I've done to kind of combat that?
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah. So I think on one of the beekeeping pages I'm in on Facebook, I saw a horizontal Langstroth hive or a long Langstroth. And that's where you, instead of stacking the bee boxes on top, you just have the long hive, you just make it as wide as you want. And then you put as many frames in as you want, and you put what's called a follower board at the end. So you're reducing the size of the hive by moving a board across. And that meant that I could have it at a height that's good for me. So I can stand in front. I don't have to bend over. I don't have to lift anything anymore. I can just lift the lid, and there's a hinge and a chain. So I can just open it like a box. Whereas with a traditional hive, you have to take the lid off, and you take the honey super off, and you have to inspect the brood box regularly, so you're always taking the honey supers off. So with the horizontal hive, all I have to do now is open the lid, take a cover board off. I don't have to take all of the boards, just the ones above the frames I'm inspecting, and then I can just lift the frame in front of me, check it, and put it down. And because I'm not opening the entire hive, I'm not upsetting the bees. And we've had a lot of trouble with aggressive bees, and what I've concluded from requeening a couple of times is that it's me and not the bees. So having horizontal hives means happier bees. They're not getting completely pulled apart and dropped all the time.
How long did it take you to build that?
Well, I started it in autumn last year because I planned to have it ready by spring. But I got a lot of other hobbies and I got distracted. So I didn't finish it until this week. So my whole family had COVID, and so I was having to isolate with them. So I just spent the whole week finishing off the hive, and we brought it out there this morning. And I've got very unhappy bees because I've just put them all in a new hive. But that means they're ready for spring. And if I need to pop in and have a look during winter, I can just lift a small section and check or put some sugar in if they need it without having to open the entire hive and making it all cold.
So how many frames did you put into your new hive?
So at the moment, it's got 15 frames. So I took out the empty frames from the brood box and one of the honey frames that wasn't filled. So there's either brood or honey in the frames that I've left them with.
How many frames did you build the hive for?
It takes 32.
32. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm not likely to need the whole lot because the bees where I am, because you get a lot of cold weather, they don't tend to fill out the whole super, but it's there in case.
How many Langstroth hives do you have?
Well, I've got one other hive, which is a flow hive. So that's the one that's got the plastic frames that they fill and you just pop them open to get the honey out. So that was my first hive. I did have 3 hives, but towards the end of the season in 2021, one of them lost its queen and they were both weak. So I combined them. So I've just got the 2 now.
Yeah, we love our flow hive.
Yeah, it is really easy. I think that's another thing that makes beekeeping accessible is that with the flow hive, there's less messing around with taking out frames and using extractors. It makes it a lot easier. I've only harvested my flow once so far, though.
You said your disability makes you shake in your hands.
Yeah.
How do you combat that when you're working with the bees? Because I have somebody in the United States that has Parkinson's.
Yeah, it's quite similar to Parkinson's. Mine's dopamine responsive dystonia, so it isn't as bad as what it was before medicating, but I still shake a lot. I'm shaking a lot today because I've been working the hive, this morning. So always when I'm doing a lot, I shake more. So I'll do things like I'll use a hive clamp and sorry, not a hive clamp, a frame clamp. So
Hmm.
instead of picking up the ends and it's fiddly to get your gloved hands in, I'll use the clamp, and it's got a nice handle. It's thick, so for me, holding something like a hive tool, it's not as easy because it's thin. So I have trouble with my grip. So if something's bigger or thicker, then I can hold it easier. So that's made a big difference using that.
One of the things that I had thought about for my working with the person in Parkinson's was actually to um, you know what a gimbal is for making cameras stay stable.
Yeah,
I was thinking about making a gimbal that would allow me to have a frame holder on the end of it that would keep it steady while you were viewing it.
that's actually a good idea. Yeah. And this is what I was thinking when I was thinking about the talking to you today, was that there's so much potential for people to come up with their own ideas, because we've been doing beekeeping the same way for hundreds of years. We've only in the last 100 years or 200 years changed to Langstroths from baskets. So there's a huge amount of opportunity to find things like using a gimbal to hold the frame so you can look at it really thoroughly without upsetting the bees and shaking them around. Yeah.
I actually started a nonprofit called Accessible Beekeeping that plans to do research to make accessible hardware for beekeepers in the United States, and then hopefully we can have it picked up by companies to make it internationally available.
Yeah, I really like that idea. And I find that in Australia we have a lot smaller population. Um, so there's less interest from producers in making accessible equipment. So if you do it over there, and we can encourage suppliers to bring the equipment over here as well.
Unfortunately, a lot of the grants only allow you to help United States citizens.
Yeah, that's understandable. And I guess that's another way that we can go here is, um, if we see something that there's a market for, to apply for grants. We've in the last couple of years, I've seen um, there's a program for getting veterans into beekeeping and mentoring. So there is that move now towards realizing that we can get people with all different abilities into beekeeping.
If there was one thing that you wanted to tell somebody that had a disability that was working to thinking about either becoming a beekeeper or was already a beekeeper and suffered, like myself, a stroke, what information or details would you give them?
Well, I would suggest not giving up, like asking people, because we have some really supportive beekeeping communities. And if I hadn't seen the horizontal hive, I know I would have eventually had to give up beekeeping because the pain and the difficulty with lifting would have got too much. So I would suggest that people ask others, and don't give up too quickly. Like, while I I was able to build my own horizontal hive, I know there are a lot of people in the States who are building hives, and maybe it's things like looking at grants to get some hives for a community, get some hives built, like looking outside of the mainstream, looking for grants, looking for organisations willing to support your different abilities.
When we first began talking, you said that you are actually going through get ready for winter now. What are some of the things that you will do over winter that will help you with your beekeeping?
So during winter, I will often feed sugar syrup to the bees because, like I was saying before, it gets quite cold here. So that will keep them going until spring, feeding them early spring as well. And I will do things like filling the weight of the hive. So if it starts to feel a bit light, you know that you need to feed them. And then I'll do things like I'll render wax. I'll get new frames ready, wired and foundation, wax foundation. And I do things like make soap and lotion bars and whatnot. You can also freeze your frames during the seasons like summer and spring. You can freeze your frames and then you can harvest them during winter, so you don't have to harvest the honey right then. So that's another thing I'm planning to do as I get more experience with beekeeping, is to not try and do it all at once. So yeah.
Tell us a little more about your soap making. I know my mom does essential oils, so she's made some lotion bars, but I have no idea how the soap process is.
Well, soap is, I use the cold process method. So there are so many videos. I started off by watching a lot of YouTube videos to see how other people did it, and I use lye. And I only use a small amount of wax because when you look at the different soap recipes, wax can make the soap too hard. So I only use a small amount, and I'm not yet skilled in using honey because honey can make it process too fast, and then you end up ruining your soap. So I've stopped trying to use honey for a bit while I get better at soap making. And the lotion bars are similar, but you don't have to, like with soap, you have to put them aside to cure. But the lotion bars, it's only a week or so, and then you can start using them. So instead of like getting out of the shower and putting your body lotion on, you use the lotion bar in the shower, and it yeah, softens your skin.
What is your favorite part about beekeeping?
Well, my favorite part is it goes back to my childhood. I always wanted to be a farmer, and I don't have the strength or ability to be a farmer. So beekeeping for me is like my little bit of a nod to being a farmer. I'm not one, but it feels a bit like that when you keep bees.
It's definitely an agricultural process.
Yes, it is. It's like, yes, I call it a hobby, but it is an agricultural process. You have to do inspections. The industry is regulated. You can't just, I'm not sure what the rules are in USA, but in Australia, you have to have follow certain rules to be able to sell your honey. You have to have an industrial kitchen type setup. And so I just currently give honey to family. We're not actually meant to give honey away either. You're meant to only keep it for yourself if you're not licensed. So yeah.
Well, we'll make sure not to tell anybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, we have different rules in the states. Every state has their own rules. Some require industrial kitchens. Some require that you just put labels on that say infants are do not feed the infants.
Yeah, we do have differences from state to state, and we do have to have the label on saying what's in the honey and the risks, like if you've got allergy risks, that kind of thing on the honey jar.
I know because of the flow hive, the beekeeping has become, I think, more popular in Australia. Do you have a lot of beekeepers in your area?
Yeah, I do. So the population here is about 50,000, and in the beekeeping club, there's about 120 people. And there are beekeepers who aren't in our club. So it's quite a lot, and that's not including the commercial beekeepers. So some commercial beekeepers are in the hobby beekeeping club, but there are others who are not. So it's quite big.
I know we just had our big commercial beekeeping movement for the pollinating the almonds. Are there any major crops in Australia that a bunch of beekeepers get together, commercial beekeepers, to pollinate?
Yeah, so the commercial keepers will often have thousands of hives and they truck them around to the different crops. Almonds are one of the big ones, where we have big almond producers here, not as big as you have there, but yeah, there's quite a few, and they're that's the commercial beekeepers are contracted to do that.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about and to teach somebody who might have a disability?
Um, I think the main thing is if you're if you're even slightly interested, to go to a club, ask to meet beekeepers, do a workshop, um, join someone. So say with me, if somebody's interested in beekeeping, I'd say, well, I'm doing an inspection on such a date, come along and see what's involved. So then you can work out for yourself, is this something I'm going to want to do on a regular basis, the inspections, and what what are the limitations, what are the things that I can do, and look at the workarounds. So rather than say, oh, like I did, oh, let's get a flow hive and then find out afterwards that it's really heavy and I can't lift. I think do it the other way, go along, um, join a beekeeper for a while through their season, and then you'll have a much better idea of what workarounds you'll need.
Yeah, there are a couple, or a couple, there are a lot of nonprofits that are for veterans here in the United States, and the majority of them ask you to be part of their club without having any bees for about a year and have be under a membership before you start taking care of your own bees.
Yeah, so that's we do have that one here. Well, not necessarily that one, but something similar where um, you mentor a veteran for a year and then help them while they're setting up their hives, and continue to mentor them through their beekeeping. I think it's great.
I agree. I think it's great too. It's crazy to me how you guys are getting ready to go into winter and we're just getting out of winter.
Yeah, and where I am, snow's pretty rare, and I see people in some places that they insulate their hives, and you have to bring your hives indoors for winter, and all sorts of things that people do in different parts of the world. Like where my son lives, it's just an hour away. They don't need to pack up their hives for winter because their bees can forage pretty much all year round. It's a lot warmer. It's on the coast and it's quite humid.
Yeah, I have a beekeeping friend who lives in Canada, and they just had a major 12-inch snow that went down.
Yeah, I find that incredible. The only snow here is like we were lucky to get snowballs, and that was about 8 years ago.
Well, thank you for coming on. It really was a great talk.
Yeah, you're welcome. I enjoyed talking with you, Justin. Thanks for asking me.
This is Justin Ruger with Accessible Beekeeping and More. We had our guest Linda on tonight. Be limitless, be different, and continue beekeeping. Thank you all.